Hey people, this is the Narmer palette. If you don't know anything about it, you know more about it than anybody that's been studying it for the past 100-something years. So this goes out to all those people at the fancy schools with the fancy titles that's been studying this for 100 years and trying to pay off a student debt after being brainwashed. So these are said to be over 5,300 years old cosmetic palettes, and they were dug up in Narmer in 1897 from the Temple of Horus at Nikon. And this is how I run into this. But this Nikon is the word I was looking for when I found out that it was also called Hyrcanopolis, and that gives a lot of information right there. The polis is the cities, but it's also the police, the area being policed. And the hiero is the writings of time, hieroglyphics. And the Khan is also the priest, or the Khan. So the time of the Khan police from Nikon. And so this is where I run into this Nikon first. You see it on all the days. It says when just before it says then there was morning and evening. This is the line that comes just before that, and it was so. And to wage Nikon, it's got a hyphen, and that means this reads backwards and forward, so it's NKN, Nikon, to wage Nikon. And I knew it meant astrology. It's the wage to do the work of the neck on. That's when you're looking up, you're waging your neck on. So this girl, Dr. Amy Calvert, wrote something on it. I don't want to guess what that Dr. stands for. They're 2 foot in height, and they're said to be made of a grayish green siltstone. But if you look at them, they look more like basalt. And where I was reading about them in the Bible, it says they're basalt also. So she says it was a daily use item, common in the time, used for grinding and mixing minerals for cosmetics, eyeliner. But if you're using this to grind up your cosmetics, this is a bunch of people with their head cut off and their dick tied to their head. This is a kidney and a liver here, and they're going to war. And so I guess that's where the term your war paint come from. Girl put on her war paint before going out. But if you're looking at this before you put on your eyeshadow, you're ugly to the bone. That makeup ain't doing you no good. So Hyrcanopolis sits here in what they call Upper Egypt, or the Upper Nile. This is the Mediterranean Ocean, and this is Lower Egypt in the delta where the river spews out, and Giza and the Great Pyramids around here. This is the Red Sea, and up around the bend here, it sit right around here, and this is the old lakes, and in the old Google Earth or Google Maps, I can't see it anymore, but I used to see about 7 ancient dams across here. And what I did was I looked for the high points, would be the most logical place to try to dam the river, where you had the 2 high points, the narrowest spot, and you could see the ancient dams underneath the river. I really can't find them anymore, but that's where it sit, was down here where the lowest one, right about where the lowest one was. I think I used to count about 7 of them across there. They found many ancient artifacts while they were digging this up. the oldest known painting on a plastered wall. And they found these old cylinder seals where they would roll them across the clay to leave their mark. And they found this old mace head. So this is one of the few things they got right about them is that they're written in rebus. And it's a puzzle. It combines picture words. So if we start to read this in rebus, the first thing we see at the top is 2 bulls. And so if you have 2 bulls, you got a parable. And so this is a parable, and this is what they say is narmer here. A catfish is a nar, and a chisel is a myrrh. But that's not correct. This is you look at this tool, it's got bands around it. And it's a thin spike in here. And it's not a chisel. A chisel has to have a shoulder. You put a lot of pressure, you hammer on a chisel, and it has to have a shoulder where it meets the handle. But this is an awl. Now, awl, you just stick this spike, this hardened steel spike up in the handle and band it. It's called a scratch awl. We use them in metal work for scratching sheet metal instead of putting a pencil line on there. You scratch it and you can see it better in low light conditions, and it doesn't wipe off. And it's also used in sewing leather, sewing sails. So all the old creatures had qualities, and that's why they used them for writings, because, just like the gods, they have pages of qualities, and when you put one symbol up there, it meant many things, and the other writings around it kind of pointed to what it was talking about. But the catfish is kind of like a flounder in a couple ways. They're both bottom feeders, and if you troll across the bottom to catch them, and so you snag on stumps and rocks and reefs a lot when you're flounder fishing or when you're catfishing. And the way that they bite, if you are on the Gulf and you flounder fish a lot, sometimes a flounder will hit it most of the time, and you'll think you're on a reef. You think you're just snagged up on a reef, and you'll try to pull it loose. And it's just the way they feed. They'll just grab it and lay there on the bottom. You got to give them a second, give them a little slack to suck it up, or you just pull it out of their mouth. And that little catfish do that the same. You're trolling on the bottom of the river to catch a catfish, and so you're hitting all the logs and stumps down there. And so sometimes you'll think you're on a snag when it's actually in the fish's mouth. He's got the bait, but he doesn't quite have the hook in his mouth. And so if you Google catfish today, they'll tell you that that's a new invention, that a catfish is a persona other than yourself that you're using on the internet, usually as a 13-year-old girl, usually a 55-year-old man with a persona of a 13-year-old girl. And that's not true. It's been going on forever. Been called catfishing, and you've been catfished. So floundered would have a different meaning. Flounder is a warlike people, and but it's also to stumble around drunkenly. Floundered. But when you've been catfished, is you've been fooled. You thought it was a stump, and so this is the parable to catfish all. Most people are going to bite on the stump. Most people looking at this are biting on the stump. They're not realizing it's a catfish in there. So we can see this repeated again just underneath the catfish all what parable. So this is a shackle. It means to connect, and it's like the letter Vav, V-W or U, means to connect. And this is a loaf of bread, and it means writings. It was the first writings. Was when you bake a loaf of bread, you put a mark on it to tell what type of bread it was and what day it was cooked. It was some of the first writings used, so when you were selling bread, somebody could look at that loaf and know what it was in it, and they could know how old it was. They could know how much they might offer you for that bread with that mark of the Sabbath on it. Oh, that was 3 days old. That's 3-day-old bread. I need a discount. And so this represents what? WT. And what is the connected seal, the connected writings, you know. And so if you want to see the connected writings to this picture, you would go to Wikipedia and look up the bolos to see the connected writings. And so this is a bolos is you got a single bolo. If you're on board a ship and you're throwing a line across to another ship, you would throw a bolo out. And if you're at war trying to catch somebody, you might use a double bolo or a parabolo or a tribolo. So we start over here, and so this big square here, it represents the letter P, and the letter P represents open, and then this is a level here. This is the ancient Egyptian level, and you could place this on the stone, these two ends on the stone, and this little plumb bob here is just going to point toward the center of the earth. And these markings across here are going to let you know that this is level. The little plumb bob sits here, you know it's level. So it's like a video game. Open, level. Begin here. But this also says page. This is a G bar. And that's that G that you see in the middle of the Mason symbol. And it means level. But it also says PG, the page. And so this is the page here, and here he's represented by a six-leaf palm, and the same thing's written on the other side, except it's bigger. You can see it better, but the palm has done grown a leaf. And that's a 7-leaf palm. And so that's another symbol, lets you know that this is page 2. This is after it's done grown. And this is the symbol I saw that reminded me that where I saw this in when I was reading about the priest sprinkled the blood with his finger. And I remember reading this sabot palm, the 7 palm. And so this is what had me go into to look in a Bible to help decode this, and this is how I did it. So all these Egyptologists, they say nothing about him. They just call him the sandal bearer. But he's got more code than all the rest of them. He's the only one wearing a necklace. He's the only one with a dauber. He's the only one carrying the mace. and he also has the bull tail as who they call Narmer. But nobody else has any of these qualities. And they're just overlooking the biggest part of these writings. But he's the same here. I look here because it's big enough to see. So, being that he's carrying, you call it to make fair. To make fair, to carry, and wicker. So this is the word wicker, W-I-Q-R-A. And wicker is the grass that you would weave a basket out of. So you would call a basket a wicker. And but it's connected work, or to make, Q-R-E, the center of the first knowledge. And so the center of the first knowledge is you're carrying. You carry my bag for me. You carry my shoes. To wicker, and it's used 201 times like this, or possibly more, and they say 734, but like most of the words, I find that they're always have they'll give it a different meaning somewhere, but they say it means called, and then they say it means gave. They'll change the meaning up, but it means wicker. It means to make fair. And to make fair is the job, your job. And here it says, to make fair from Yell. And all through the beginning, that's where it starts, to make fair from Yell. And then to 3:9 is then to make fair you from Yell. And then to make fair had from same. And so they'll probably say this means called, but this is to make fair. And then this dauber, this is a hard on, it's a stiffy. And in the creation story of Egypt, it was a mound that came out of the earth, that rose up out of the waters. The mound of all beginning of creation. But it also means a dauber is a cop. It means you've got a hard on for your boss's job. It means you're next in line to be the king. You're next in line to, you're moving your way up the ranks. You got a hard on. You're a rat. You ratting everybody out, thinking you're going to move up in ranks there. And then he's got this old wrapper chain on, his big old gold P on his chest. P. And then he's got the shoes over here. They try to say these are sandals, but I think ancient people call these shoes. And so this is to make fair the word Pishu. The dauber, they give that the meaning, the word, all the way through the Bible. The word of Pishu. And so Pishu got a deep meaning. That's my family name. And so the way I see this is about 150 generations ago. So my great-great-great-grandfather Pishu wrote this for me to decipher. So Pishu is known as the king of Babylon, the king of Babel, king of Bible. And that's what this represents. This means ruler. The Pishu. Got the shoes on his arm. He's not carrying them. They just attach to his arm somehow. And we can see this here at Exodus 25:10 when they're building the Ark of the Covenant. Make the ark out of Zulon, of the incorruptible, the acacia wood, 2 cubits. word 4083. And a half the length, and a cubit, word 4083, a cubit. A cubit is the ruler, is the length of the measurement. This is word 4083, the pea shoes. Pea shoes, that was the name of my grandpa's bar room, pea shoes. And so that means ruler, as in your 12 inches is your ruler. Your pea shoes is your cubit, is your ruler. And here in the New Testament they changed up to hour sometime. Cubit, an hour. Cubits, yards. But it's defined as the length of a forearm is a cubit. About 1.5 feet. The length of the forearm. And so that's what this is represented, is the length of the forearm. Pea shoes. The ruler. So you should be starting to get this rebus down, the dibber, the word of pea shoe, the word of the ruler. And so you see here on this bigger picture, we see that he's got an ox or a bull's tail. A bull's tail. And you see he's got a plaid kilt, which is more Scottish, you would think. The Scots wear plaid kilts. And you can see he's got the pair of bulls, the 2 pair of bulls, 4 bulls there. 2 parables. And so, when somebody's telling you something you don't quite believe the story, it's bull. They're telling a tale. This is part of the rebus. That's what that means. And so, over here on the page Sabo, the seven palm, He's got the hat of the upper, the crown of Upper Egypt, the big dick head, what it is. And over here on the 6th palm, he's got a different pose now. He's got the crown of Lower Egypt. And this represents the tongue here. This is the ancient letter L. And it's the letter L, it means to command. If you look up auger in Wikipedia, they'll tell a silly story about this was a flute that they played. But the auger was the most important man in the city. And his face was on all the money. And it's the ancient litis. You'll see it on all the coins with all the Roman rulers. And it means the command, the L. So his hat looks like a toilet, and that's exactly what it is. This is the Lower Egypt. This is down there at the mouth of the river, where all the shit that the dickheads up there in Upper Egypt are flushing down the river. Just like down here in New Orleans, where we're getting all the shit from Chicago floating down. That is an ancient toilet on his head. So you had noticed that all these people with Narmer's army, they got big old ears. They're always showing their right ear, the big old ear. You see the enemy have a small left ear, and they can't hear well. But these big old ears, they got the big old ears and they hear well. So this is because the devil sits on your left shoulder, and he's whispering in your left ear. And the angel sits on your right shoulder and whispers in your right ear. It's called the dexter, is the right. And so dexter is if you're right-handed, that's your dexter side. And so the left is sinister. And these are your two Greek words for right and left, the dexter and the sinister. So up on the staffs here, they're carrying a kidney and liver and quartered legs. This is old letter G, represents the foot, and actually represents graft. But what we're going to read it is talking about the legs quartered. And we know this is the liver here. This is easy to see that this is a kidney. And it's hard to draw the liver. The liver looks like a lot of other organs. But you got a dog eating the liver. And that's how we know it's a liver. You know, if you go get drunk, you feel bad the next day, you know, you go get the hair of the dog that bit you. The dog that bit you is alcohol. It eats your liver. And so that's how they show that this is a liver, because it's hard to tell what a liver looks like. And so it's pretty easy to tell that this picture is a kidney. And the liver might fool you. It doesn't have a whole lot of shape, so they have to put the dog on it to signify the liver. And so they're laying siege. This is the army marching in, and they're here to lay siege. And then over here, this is there's 10 of them, and they're tied. And it's said that this is their dick on their head. 9 of them are supposed to have their dick on their head, and 1 of them doesn't. And then you have a solar brought, and the count is 13 loops. So this is of the moon. And you have a parakeet and a harpoon here. And then this is this represents the door, the path. And you tell the boat's poet, come in this direction. This is the path. These are parakeets up here. It's easier to tell here that it's a parakeet, but it'll spell it right out in the Greek. And so I'm pointing all these things out because we're going to see them all in this one chapter. And then underneath here, we have 2 lion heads. So just like the parables, this is a perilion. And so this is a perilion. It's when you think you see 3 suns up there, sun dogs are called, but it's not real. And then this is the mixing bowl, and these creatures down here, these are lemurs. A lion doesn't have a tail like that. That's a lemur that keeps his tail curled up. So this is a perilion bolema. They call it a serpapod, but this is the perilion bulimia. Bulimia is a disease when you look in the mirror, you don't see what's there. You see yourself too fat. And you starve yourself to death. Is bulimia? It's the disorder is in your head, because what's actually there is not what you're seeing. And we see the dangers of bulimia, that the dehydration and deficiencies can cause liver and kidney problems, liver and kidney damage. So you can see in the representation the perilion and the sun and the 2 dogs, and this is a healthy dog, and this one doesn't have quite the right shape. So it talks about this palate several places in the Bible. You see where it talks about the liver and the kidneys, and so they didn't want us to understand this. So the interpretations aren't quite right, but you can notice enough of the story in the English interpretations, King James or something. But much of it's off. But there's a couple things, that they couldn't get off because it went with the picture, and it's pretty easy to see. But there's several chapters, and it talks about this. This one plaque goes with several chapters, and they change them up a little bit, and so it can mean many different things. And it's parables, not one parable. At the altar, and they'll spread the blood. You see it on the spread the blood on the lobes of the right ear, on the sons and on the thumbs of the right hands, and on the big toes of the right feet. Splash the blood against the side of the altar. Sprinkle some on the garments. And so what this is doing is it's pointing you out to different things on the picture that'll tell you a code. It'll give you a salt. It'll give you a shape. But we see it better in the Greek or in the Hebrew. And then at the end, when it's talking about the daily, it's talking about the cures. And it really disappears in any of the English. So this is called consecration of the priest. I'm not going to read all this. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how it's talking about the bull is the parable, and it's in semen salt, and they've twisted all these words around because they didn't want us to know. But the parable. In the path, the door. And you can see here in 10, we forbid to rip. This has a tack, reads backwards first. To reap the pear, lipping a la mode on top, a la mode. And to smack near and bang to. In the head of the bull, the rose the pear. Also rose the pear. You should kill the bull by the door. And so they're just trying to put the picture on here. I don't know if they couldn't understand it or if they're trying to hide sometime. And the blood of the bull, put it on the horns of the altar with your finger, and all the blood pour beside the base of the altar. And you shall take all the fat that covers the entrails and the fatty lobe to the liver and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them, and burn the altar. The flesh of the bull with the skin and its offal. You shall burn with fire outside the camp, a sin offering. And ram 1 you should also take. And his sons, their hands on the head. And you should kill the ram, and you should take its blood and sprinkle it on the altar and around. And the ram you shall cut in pieces and wash its entrails and its legs, and put them with the pieces and with the head, with its head. It's all butchered up, the legs and the heads, all the pieces. You should burn the whole in the ram and the altar and burnt offering. And so it's actually, it's not saying this. it's talking about how to read the plaque, and when it starts talking about the ears over here, and take some of his blood and put it on the tip of the right ear of Aaron, and on the tip of the ear of the sons of the right, and on the thumb of the hand of the right, and on the big toe of the foot of the right, and sprinkle on the blood the altar all around. You should take some of the blood that is on the altar and some oil and anointing, and sprinkle on Aaron and on the garments and on his sons and on the garments of his sons with him. And so if we look in the Greek, when it's putting the blood on the ear on 20 here, it says to squash, S-Q-A-S-E-I-S, to squash this, what to on, what tone, what to on, to lips, to squash what to on to lips, L-E-P-S-H, L-H-P-S-H, the lips, to amatos, to the blood, what to connect the epiphyses, and the pi is the circle or the mouth, to tone laban, to otus, the ear. So utus is the eye and otos is the ear of Aaron, to the dexio, to the right one, to the mouth, to akron, to the feet, to the dexio, to the pi, to the mouth or to the circle, to use lobos, to tone the ears, the ton, vion, what to ton. It's where it loses everything in translation of the dexion, the right, to the pi, to akraton, the charon, what ton, the right, the dexion, to the pi, to akron, to the poden, the feet, to the foot, what to tone, the dexion, the right. Sprinkle the blood on his sons, and on the belly and the lobe of the liver and the 2 kidneys, and on the fat, the steer, to steer to the face, what tone, and to the right shoulder, the braxona, to the right shoulder. The brachon tone of the right, this tiger teleosis. And so this is the brass that's pointing at her right shoulder, the tiger teleosis. And so what it's saying, it's directing to draw a line from the right ear to the right ear, to the right ear. And then it'll say from the right ear to the right foot. And what it's doing is telling you, it's drawing a picture of a salt. It's describing the salts. And so these are all the marks of the salts. It's drawing a picture. And so these have changed some. And we find them in some old alchemical writings. And so this is the 6th. This is the 6th month. And this is the 7th month. This is the first page. And it's above. And then this is lower on the 7th. Is when you get lower. and the 6. And then lower is the 7, is the kidneys and the salts. And so this works. I have one major medical problem. I get leg cramps. I'd swim and surf a lot, and at night my legs would cramp up. And I was talking to an old man on a boat one time, and he says, yeah, he says, when you sleep at night, your whole body's cramping. You have a heart attack. Your heart's cramping. You don't even know it. And he told me, go get some of this potassium sulfate. A bottle of potassium sulfate. I told him, I eat bananas and drink Gatorade, and I eat all the right stuff, and I just get them cramps still. I eat plenty of avocados. He said, that's all you need is this cheap $2 bottle of pills from Walmart. And sure enough, I went and bought a bottle and took it, and it cured it just like that. And that was my salt, because that was my birth month. And sure enough, that was the salt that I was needing. So if you Google a Shipu and a shoe, if you hit images, you'll see this image down there. It'll take you to crystal links. And if you run on down to health, it talks all about those Sumerians here. And if you run on down here to health and read about this, it'll tell you more about, you understand more about what I'm talking about. But this Shipu was, he was an astrologist. He was skilled in astrology and a few other things, and psychology, and mostly, and he would go roll the bones and say prayers with you, and if that didn't help, then they would send a shoe out there. So the Ashu was he was more skilled in herbals, and he knew everything that Shipu did, but he was more skilled in herbals. And so he only come out, if the Ashu couldn't cure you. But that's what this book is written to. That's what all these ancient writings was about, was medicine. That's where your money's at. That was the first writers. The medicine and shipping. And it still is today. It's in the medicines, and that's why they changed the language. They didn't want us to be able to read any of this. They take all those people to school, and they purposely mislead them. And they finish school and they don't have a clue. The best ones can figure out a way to lie to you and make it sound new. So you're not going to be able to get any of this out of the English interpretations, because they switch the words. The words are switched up. They didn't want you to know certain things, but people knew some words were on some pages, so they changed that word. And then other places that word come up, a lot of times they had to use the word they used last time. But it says fat over here, and it's not fat. Fat's over here, and it's QHT, well fat, QHT, well fat too, local. And then this where it says fat, it's actually reads backwards and forwards, got a tack. And so this is the belly hold in, or the belly hold in. What the belly holds in is the entrails. So down here at Food for the Priest, this is telling the doctor, what to do. And it says what, W-A-T, what, and it starts with A, it reads backwards. What lie them lame take to insult. What lie to is is where the lie is. What lie they in lame to take them in that salt. And that's what I did, where I lied in lame. I took my salt, and it cured my cramps one night. And then down here at the daily offerings, this is the script for the ill, and it says use UZE, use rest, RSAT, the rest whose all, and it reads backwards, hubs from them sacrifice, the hubs from them Zeba, and that's the hubs, in the middle of the city, wherever people congregate, to the hubs. Use rest, don't be out partying. Use rest to whose all hubs from them sacrifice. And then to give, K is give base from, the Bing. The Bing is a mark of time, and here it is, the mark of time, the Bing, and then with the tack reads backwards, en, in sun sign, SENSNI, in sun sign from. Your sun sign, the Bing of your sun sign. There's 12 sun signs, the 12 sons of Israel, and it's strange that they should put this of the first, because every other time you see Bing, it always means the sons. It's always the sons. 1,283 times it means the sons of Noah, sons of Israel, the sons, the children. And it's strange that they should mean the first of the year here. To give base from the Bing. The Bing is in the cycle make. In cycle make. The cycle is the cycles of time. In the cycle to make. You have a cycle of morning and a cycle of evening and a cycle of autumn. The Bing in sun sign from, to bind the works connected from, is not necessarily the day. To bind the works connected from in that sun sign. To time, TMI, the time through. And that's what I was saying. The Shippu, that's the first thing they did. First thing this Shippu did is ask you when you were born, and he got your sun sign, and that's how the medicine worked then. And it seems that it probably still works that way today, and they just don't want you to know it, because all these salts you can buy cheap at Kmart, Walmart, and they can't sell you all the expensive drugs if you know these simple medical secrets from 5,000 plus years ago. And shall be a tenth of a ephah of flour mixed with oil. And you see, flour is actually salt in Lul, in semen. And so this in tenth, that's pointing out over here. That's why 9 of them have their dick on their head, and 1/10 of them doesn't. And so that's what this is pointing out here. So all this has a whole lot of meaning, and you see, we didn't even have time to go through this one chapter. In every one of these chapters where it talks about the liver and the kidneys in Leviticus 3, 4, 7, 8, 9. It's going to be referring to this this picture. This just be way too long. I'm gonna read some more of these chapters on this, and maybe separate some other meanings out of this, and cut this off here. It's going way too long. All right, good day.